Hey everyone, I am your host, Allie Gentry, and welcome to the Vibrant Life Show. This show is all about exploring the purposes God has placed in our lives and the passions He's placed in our hearts to reach the communities He's placed us in for such a time as this. So whether we're hearing stories of those living out their passions, helping you discover your purpose, asking hard questions, or leaning into cultural moments, the hope of this show is to remind us that the life that we're called to live is an adventurous one, a meaningful one, a purposeful one. We are invited to live the vibrant life. And I just want to say a big shout out because guess what, y'all? Vibrant Ministries is now officially a nonprofit. And so we want to invite you, if you want to give to the mission and what we're doing here at the Vibrant Ministries, at the Vibrant Life Show, and all that we get to do to help other people live a vibrant life, you can give to the mission by going to my website at alliegentry.com/vibrant. And today and give, and we are so grateful to be able to partner with you in that way. And today on the show, we are talking about kingdom collaboration and how we can cultivate a culture of working together and really becoming the church and being one body and being unified. The last couple of weeks, we've talked about, with Chesley Lunday, we talked about the future of the church. And last week with Sherry Wagner, we talked about the biblical literacy and why it's so critical for us to be in the Word. And on that vein, I just feel like one of the wonderful things about the church that we get to do is work together. And so that's what we're talking about today. And I hope that you can walk away with this realizing and knowing that to live this vibrant life is to actually work together with the purpose and the passion that God's placed in your heart, but not just to do it for what you want to do, but also by helping other people live out their call, live out their mission by coming together and by working alongside each other. Now, I don't know who out there ran track. Like I know I speak and I like to have these people in front of me, so I usually like people to raise their hands. So you can do that if you want to. We won't judge because we can't see you. But what I love about this is that, one, I did not run track. Okay, y'all, this was not a thing for me. I don't know who runs for fun. My videographer Matt in here is over here like raising his hand, and I don't even know him anymore because who runs for fun? I feel like I don't trust people who run for fun. But you know what? God has redeemed that part of my soul. But I played sports. I played volleyball, basketball, softball along the way because it had purpose. I'm just kidding. But with track, I just had a hard time just doing like, hey, we're going to run around for fun. But my biology teacher, my sophomore biology teacher, Mr. Kuiper, shout out. He's actually over at Valley Christian High School in the East Valley. But he was not the principal at the time. He was but he was my teacher. And he was also the coach for track and field. And I remember walking into sixth period every day after lunch, and there was a sign-up sheet for track and field on my desk every day right before track started. And I'm like, no. I would look at him and I'd say, no. Like, he's just like, Allie, just one day, just give it one day. And he's like, y'all change your mind on it. So I signed up for one day, and I signed up for shot put, y'all. Like, that's not track. I mean, it is track, but it's not running. But we did have to do 2 warm-up laps, which, by the way, is only like half a mile. And I almost fainted. And that's actually why I quit that day. So I only did 1 day of track, and I did shot put, and I didn't get to throw anything, and got to run 2 laps. And I'm like, I'm done here. This is a calling for someone else. But what's interesting is, as I read scripture, though, it's always talking about running the race marked out for you. And I feel like people who are track runners understand this lingo in such a different way than I ever did until I really started to study it when I got older. And when it comes to scripture, where it pops up, like run the race marked out for you. And one of the verses that this really came to mind. So in track and field, there's a thing called the relay race, right? So there's 4x1, there's 4x4, so 4x100 meters, and there's 4 people who run it, or 4x400, and I'm sure there's more than that. Is there 4x8? I'm getting a yes from Matt in the studio. See, I told you I don't know anything. But what happens is there's this relay race. And so track is oftentimes a solo running, a solo sport in some ways. And then But when you have a relay race, you have to depend on the person behind you and in front of you, unless you're starting it out, to run accurately, to run fully through the area that you can run through. And then you hand the baton off to the person in front of you. And there's two different ways that you can hand it off. There's a blind handoff, and then there's also where you can turn around. You have to be yelling at each other, coming in at the same speed, and then as you transfer the baton, the one that just gave it to you slows down, and then the one who just took it is speeding up. But there's also a time there where they're running at the exact same time during the relay race, during the transfer. And if you drop that baton in between and it goes into a different lane, you are disqualified. And so I get this picture in my mind when I was reading in Hebrews, and Hebrews 11 is this whole, what's called the Hall of Faith. And the Hall of Faith it starts like really from the beginning, and it's talking about what faith is. And it's this idea of things that are hoped for, proof of what's not seen yet. And it starts with Cain. It starts with Cain and Abel. It talks from the creation, then it goes to Abraham, and it goes to Moses, and it goes through all of these people throughout history, where it's saying like this faith was passed on from generation to generation to generation, this relay race of passing the baton of who God is and what he's done in their life. And at the end of Hebrews 11, it reads this. It says, all these, in verse 39, it says, all these were approved through their faith, but they did not receive what was promised, since God had provided something better for us so that they would not be made perfect without us. And this verse hit me so hard, and we're going to transition into chapter 12, because we have to also remember when we're reading scripture that the verses and chapters were not there originally. They've been added in for our ease in reading it, and it's helpful 100%. But what happens here is that it's saying that the promises weren't they didn't receive all of the promise that God had given them because they needed the next generation to receive the promise. And that's to Jesus coming, and that's to Jesus coming back. And to receive the promise of all that God's going to do throughout all generations, we need you. We need you in this relay, but we also have to learn how to pass it from one person to the next and to work together on a team, passing the baton. And when we get into Hebrews 12:1, it says, okay, so remember it says we haven't received the promise yet, but then it goes into 12:1. It says, therefore we have such a large crowd, a cloud of witnesses surrounding us. Let us lay aside every hindrance, everything that hinders us, and the sins that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. For the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross, scorned the shame, and is now seated at the right hand of the Father. And this is the promise, is that we have eternity in our hearts. We have an eternity with Jesus. But right before it says, hey, run the race, it's telling you all of these people from generation to generation who have followed God, who have worked together, who have cheered each other on to end up to where you are right now. It's like you run the race that's marked out for us. And I know I tell a lot of travel stories, but hey, this is one of my favorite things in my life. But I actually went to Athens when I went to college over in London. We went to Athens during our fall break, and we got there and we decided to go to the Olympic. It's a stadium. It's a huge track and field stadium. There, I would try to pronounce the stadium name, but I can't because I can't speak Greek. But you're welcome for not trying. My original language was Texan, but now we moved to Arizona and we've lost the accent. But so I go there and we're running. No one else was in the whole stadium, which is crazy because this stadium has been there since I don't know why I'm spacing it right now. It has been there since before Jesus was here, okay? Like this thing was so long ago. And they have redone it. They've remodeled it. But this has been here for so long. And what happened is that people would fill the stadiums and they would be cheering each other on as the runners would be running the race, and there would be a relay race. So just picture this cloud of witnesses cheering you on. And while it's our time on earth, while it's you, how God chose you from the beginning of time to be born at this period, this generation, for such a time as this, He placed us here so that we could run this race together. And then there's a great cloud of witnesses who have gone before us, who are cheering us on and all that we're doing here on the earth. And we get to do this for the kingdom, but we have to do it together. Kingdom collaboration. We've got to cultivate a kingdom and a culture of collaboration within the church, because I know you know my heart at this point. I am so passionate about unity within the church, where things that are top, like the main thing, we got to keep the main thing. But things that are second tier, third tier, we can still work with people who do not believe the exact same, maybe the exact same, either whether it be doctrine or whatever, on certain things that are not the main thing. Do you know what I mean? We can still work together, because I know I've had conversations, I almost said arguments, but that's not the best way to say that. Heated conversations. No, crucial conversations. That's the word I'm looking for. And we've had these conversations, but I know that at the end of it, even if we don't agree with how we interpret the scriptures, I can still say at the end of the day, I'm still going to see you in heaven. I'm still going to see you there. Like, this isn't a salvation issue. And what we have to get past as believers, the world is trying to push us into our tribes. And I believe that we, to make the biggest difference in our generation, must come together to collaborate and cultivate in our sphere, whatever that might be, whether it's with your kids at home, or whether it's at your job or your work or your ministry life, or your hobbies, like to use your hobbies to serve other people, to help young moms. I know so many young moms, I'm sure that they could use the help, to use this way, to use your gifts, to use your time, to collaborate with one another, to help each other run the race marked out for us. So if you're just joining us, I'm Gentry. This is the Vibrant Life Show, and we're talking about how to cultivate a culture of collaboration within the kingdom of God, and to move past and to use the gifts God's given us, the things. And I'm telling you, when you actually walk in your gifts, when you walk in your strengths, when you walk into the purposes that God has created you in, you will feel that vibrancy, that energy, how we've talked about before, where it makes you feel whole. It makes you feel alive. You will feel this vibrant life when not only are you walking in it, but you're serving others with what he's created you with. So there's 5 quick things that we're going to go through. The first thing, I believe in building and cultivating a culture of collaboration. The first thing is to believe in others. And I know that this seems very simple, and I kind of just touched on it too, but it's like, if it's not the first tier issue, it's not a salvation issue, we can still work with one another. If I don't agree with something that you believe in, maybe I don't agree with your politics, maybe I don't agree with certain stances, maybe I don't agree with how you raise your children, which I don't know if I should have even any opinion on as someone who does not have children. But maybe I don't agree with something, but maybe what if we gave each other the benefit of the doubt that the person is trying their best and trying their hardest to do what they know is right, even if it's in disagreement with what I believe is right. Through my lens, through my tradition, through my stories, it's going to be different than yours. And so if we can just give each other the benefit of the doubt and push back on culture that's saying, I don't agree with you, then I'm not talking to you. I don't agree with you, then I don't like you. I don't agree with you, I'm unfollowing you. And I understand that there's times and places for those things. And I'm not saying that. But what I am saying as believers, that we have got to learn how to give each other this benefit of the doubt and believe, but despite different denominations and backgrounds, despite different political stances, that we can say, you know what, if we're going the same way and we're running this race, then I'm going to believe that we can pass this baton together, that we can cheer each other on, and that we can learn how to not only stay in our lanes, but we can also cheer each other on in theirs, because we know that it's for a greater purpose and a greater cause. And we have to be people of collaboration. And I really believe that this generation wants to be that. And so as the church, we need to be an example of it. The second thing that I always say is to ask for input. So ask for input for people around you, because honestly, I was talking about this with my team the other day. We run a Rise, which is a once a month event, but we do other things in that too. But here in Phoenix area, and women from all backgrounds, denominations, generations, many people who are unchurched come to Arise. We were talking in our leadership team the other night, and we're like, oh yeah, we need to do a survey and feedback. And I was like, I haven't done that at certain points, because sometimes it feels too fragile you're like, I'm putting all of this out there, and sometimes it's hard to hear. But some of the best ways that I've gotten feedback, or how I've grown in speaking, or I've grown in certain things, is when people actually give me feedback, they give me input. But to do that, you have to posture yourself in a humility and invite others in. And just say, okay, I'm going to listen to what they have to say, because we all have blind spots. I mean, all of us, you know what I'm talking about. My dad talks about this all the time. When there's like cars and you're driving, there's a blind spot. And that's why we have different things on our cars now to tell you that there's a car in our blind spot. Like, we need people in our lives to be those beepers that's saying, hey, there's someone in this lane that you can't see right now. There's something that you're doing that you can't see right now. And maybe you need this person to come in and help you. Maybe it's asking for new ideas. If we try to create stuff that only you had it and you don't ask anyone else for ideas, you are missing out on something beautiful to invite people into helping you dream up a future, and they feel like they're involved in it. And then when they feel like their ideas are heard, you're going to get this new information, and you can create something that you never had before, because you're asking other people for their thoughts and for their ideas. And it creates this whole beautiful gift of what the body of Christ actually can look like. The third thing, so the first one was believe in others. The second thing is ask for input. The third thing is to trust others with the task. So leaders tend to, and I would say that this goes in a lot of places, we tend to do everything ourselves and we want to control it. I mean, I have to admit that this is something that I've really tried to work through and learn from, because we have an idea of exactly how things have to be. If you're a parent, you're like, I have an exact way of how my house should look, or I have an exact way of how this task should be done at the job. And it's hard for us a lot of times to hand that over to someone else. And admittedly, sometimes it's hard to hand it over to someone else, even if you know that it's not your strength, because it's just hard to release control. Because when you release that to someone else, you don't have exact say-so over the exact outcome of what happens. And I heard it said, I don't know where it was. I don't know if it's Global Leadership Summit or where it might have been, but it just said that if the job is going to be done 80% of what you would do, then you can release it. And now I want to caution you on this too, because I just was like, oh yeah, I trust they can do it. And then I totally released it. And then I didn't keep in communication and see and check in on how they were doing and stuff like that. And what had happened in that, and what caused in that was like, they just felt solo, and that they actually weren't working on a team. Because I'm telling you, we are all created to work together. And whenever you do stuff as a family together, when you clean up together, whenever you do team stuff at your job or at your work, or you do team stuff even on our, like for our leadership team, it creates this bond that's like, hey, you trusted me with this, but you also just didn't leave me hanging out to dry on any of this. And also, in the world of individualism that we live in a culture of it, not even a total world, it's a very Western culture type of way of doing this. But in this idea of individualism, the church should be doing, I don't know about pushing back on it is the right way to say it, but everybody's in like, I do me, you do you, boo. Like, that's kind of the cultural way of doing and looking at this stuff. But the church should be like, no, I see what you have as an individual, and now let's work together. Like, we can serve at our churches, we can serve at a nonprofit down the street, we can serve the women's shelter, we can serve at these places, because it's say, I have this to bring. And now I want to come alongside you and trust you that that you can you can lead a team, or you can get this task done. And it's it's incredible whenever you see it in your team's eyes a lot of times, where it's like, you actually trust me? And I'm like, yeah, I trust you to get this done. And I know it can be tough, especially when it's like younger kids as an older generation for me, I'm a millennial, to move in and to trust Gen Z and to start pouring into them so that they know that we believe in them, that we're handing off the baton and we're cheering them on and saying, you're up next, peeps. Like, you're up next. I believe in you. I see in you. And we trust that you can do this. We trust you with it. The fourth thing is own your place in the race. We need to cultivate a culture of collaboration, not competition. And it's hard to do this because so many people see what everyone else is doing all the time from social media or whatever it might be. And it's hard not to compare whenever, especially if we're doing things that are similar to other people, or it's hard not to compare a marriage based off of what you've seen other people online or heard on a podcast, or hard not to compare a ministry or a church or a job or how you're running things or how big or how many people are attending things. It's hard not to do that. And I understand. Trust me, it's so hard. But what we can't do is let that comparison, let the enemy steal our joy and our vibrancy of actually living out what we love to do, no matter the area that we're doing it in, and to make us start competing with one another and comparing each other. We must stay in our lane. God gave you a name. God gave you a face. God gave you gifts for a reason and a purpose that no one else looks like. No one else matches who you are in the community that you're placed in. And so if we really let that sink in, we will own our place in the race, and that we don't have to compare. We can learn from other people. We can maybe look for ways and say, like, that worked great. Maybe we can implement it. But when we start comparing one another, we lose the vibrancy. We lose the joy of actually getting to collaborate with one another and celebrate. Have you ever felt like when you're comparing, like, it's really hard to celebrate that person? Yeah, because it steals your joy. It steals your ability to cheer other people on when you're comparing and when you're competing. So own your place in the race. And the last one, if you're following along, the first one is believe in others. Ask for input as the second one. Trust others with the task. Own your place in the race. That's 4. And if you were writing these down, it actually is starting to spell out baton, because I'm that type of teacher. But it's hard to do that over the radio. And so the last one is actually, it says endure until the end. Now, I know that it does not start with an N. It starts with an E, but I'm teaching, so we get to do what we want to do around here. But to endure till the end. And I took that based off of what we were talking about of Hebrews 12:1, where it says to endure, to push forward, to let us run with endurance. And actually, the header in my Bible actually says a call to endurance over chapter 12 of Hebrews. And this takes time. You guys, when you're building something, when you're pouring into your kids, your grandkids, when you're pouring into the next generation, when you're pouring into your team, it takes time. It takes time to really learn and to sit with people and to listen to them and to build that trust and to know who they are and to really believe in them. It takes time. And in this world of instant gratification and always figuring things out quickly or instant success, that's not the reality. We need to be in this for the long run. And to do this in the long run, we have to have people around us cheering us on so that we can endure to the end. So throw off everything that's hindering you right now. Like, I just take a moment thinking, what is something that's hindering me from really working with other people right now? Or is there a situation at your job that you're really frustrated and you realize that's actually competition with a coworker, or it's competition with the church down the street, or it's a competition with to really look inside and say, no, this is actually, we're furthering the kingdom, and we can be a light in places that do not know Jesus. And as a people who do know Jesus in a kingdom, we must come together and cheer each other on, because endurance leads to character and character leads to hope. And we must be people of hope, as it says in Romans 5. And as people of hope, we need to believe, ask, trust, and own it and endure until the end, because our city needs you. Your city needs you. And guess what? We need each other. And as the generations before us cheer us on, let's be the generation that cheers each other on, and now to speak life and truth and sets an example for those who are coming behind us, to show others how we can bring heaven to earth here and now, and be a generation who cultivates a culture of collaboration. And I'm telling you, in that, we will have a vibrant life. And that's what we're inviting you to use your heart, to use your voice, and to use all God's given you to live the vibrant life that He's created for you. We'll see you next week. Thank you for joining me on the Vibrant Life Show. I would love to connect with you and get to know you. My favorite place to hang out is over on Instagram at allie.gentry, or over on Facebook. You can also go to my website, alliegentry.com. That's ALIGENTRY.com. Sign up for my newsletter to stay up to date and get links to the show on all platforms after we air, the show's YouTube channel, and really just all the things. I am so honored to get to hang out with you today. My heart is that you remember that each day is an invitation to live the vibrant life.